Hey, good morning to you guys. Something was pressed upon my heart about 30 minutes ago. And I ain't trying to make this a really, sad video, but I do want to encourage you guys through what could potentially be sad. But it's that severe of a situation, so I feel like it's suitable. I personally have lost my brother. I had to personally go and tell my mom that my brother passed away. One of the hardest things I've ever had to go through my entire life. God gave me the grace to get through it, to get through that scenario, and every day after. It's been a struggle. It's not easy when you lose somebody that you love. Your life seems to never be the same because now you have a chunk of your heart ripped out. It's never there again, it seems. So I say that to say this. To lose a child has to be the worst scenario. And I have friends that have lost children. And I've been to grief counseling with them and discussed it in depth with them. Their loss, my loss. What God says about loss. How we as believers are supposed to deal with said loss. I don't know about y'all, but there are so many things that I do that cause my time with my children to be wasted. No man wants to say this out loud. I get no joy or pleasure saying this out loud, but it's the truth. And that's one thing about Matty D is I'm going to tell you the truth. My dad said you can always be honest, more honest or most honest with people. And most honestly, there are things that I need to cut out of my life so I can spend more time with my children. I want to encourage y'all today because we're not promised tomorrow. Our children are not promised tomorrow, and we are not promised tomorrow. So whatever it is that you look forward to doing when you get home from work, that's not spending time with your children, and I know you got it. We all do. Consider not doing it today. Consider just, even if it's just rubbing your child's back, right? Watching a movie and rubbing his back. There's something to be said about time spent. Irregardless of how it's spent, as long as your focus is on them, it moves mountains in their lives. The security they get from it, of knowing, boy, my dad, my mom, they love me. As opposed to thinking, man, here I am again by myself. Because see, here's a problem. Let's say you're doing these things, and let's say your child, God forbid, your child passes away. You're going to be left, just follow me, I know this is where it gets difficult. You're going to be left with some things, some emotions, doubts, concerns, shame, guilt, these sorts of things. But if you can stop now while you still have time, and become a little less selfish, and hopes to become a lot less selfish, time spent with your children will always be time well spent. Well spent time. I know it's easier said than done, But if you start to put things into perspective, they might not always be here. You won't always be here. What am I doing with my time? Where's my focus? How do I shift my focus and continuously have this turn of mind in you? On your deathbed, when you're granted you have that kind of time to consider these sorts of things, you're going to look back and have some fears, some doubts, some regrets, or you're going to look back and be like, man, thank you so much, Lord God, for the time you gave me with my children. And you're going to look back at those times, and they're going to be full of memories of y'all spending time together and you pouring into your children. As opposed to you thinking, man, I wasted all my time with my kids. All my time spent, gone, wasted, nothing gained. I did not pour into my children. I was extraordinarily selfish. I had the privilege, if you will, of being able to see my dad 4 days before he passed away. Now, little fun fact, my dad gave me my first Percocet when I was in 10th grade. I fell in love with the feeling 15 minutes later. Neither he nor I anticipated such a situation occurring, but it did, which led to a 20-plus year addiction to pain meds. Both my brother and myself had this addiction. My dad gave both of us our first pills. And I got to spend the 4 days with him that he had left, last 4 days, in a hospice house. And he asked me, he said, Matthew, there's a chapel somewhere in here. Will you wheel me up to this chapel? I go to the chapel, I take him there. It's just he and I, my brother's outside smoking a cigarette. And he says, there's a cross up there in the front. Will you wheel me up to the cross? I said, yes, sir. So I wheel him up to the cross. He says, give me a minute. I said, no problem. I go and I sit over on the far right side of the front pew. Quaint little chapel, nothing too extravagant. And I sit there and I watch my dad talk to his Father in heaven for over 45 minutes. Now, my dad was in a lot of pain and on a lot of pain meds for a lot of my life. He wasn't able to do a lot of things that I can do with my children, that maybe you can do with your children. On top of that, both of his kids at this time were drug addicts, thieves, not focused on God. Extraordinarily selfish individuals, to say the least. Talk about shame, talk about fears on his part for his children, talk about regrets. I know he had them. Now, I never asked him what he said to God in this 45-minute period of time. I didn't have to ask him. I knew what he was talking about. And here's how I knew. Because that day was my last day seeing my dad. I left in the afternoon to go back up north to do my job. And before I left, I went to say goodbye to him. I gave him a hug. I got up and walked away, and I did that little stutter step where you turn to go out the door, but then you turn back to look at him, and you turn to go out the door, but you don't want to leave, so you turn back to look at him, and he's like, hey. Now, keep this in mind. Knowing he's about to draw his very last breath. Both of his kids are drug addicts, right? Shame, fears, doubts, regrets, all these things that you are going to feel when you go to draw your last breath. He didn't have that going on. And here's how I know. He looks at me. If you know a dad, they don't got to say a single word. They can tell you a story by just giving you a look. He looks at me and he goes, hey, just go. The way he looks at me and says, just go, was like, I'm good. You're good. I was never in control like I thought I was. You're not in control like you think you are. The one who is in control, the judge of all the earth, will do right. God gives us this certain amount of grace. The Bible talks about Jesus doles out grace according to his will, according to his purpose, to bring him glory. So he gives us grace ultimately, not when we want it, right? But when he thinks, well, not thinks, but when he knows we need it, right? So it's according to his will and based on his wise counsel to bring him glory. I went off on a little tangent there about grace, but at the same time, I think it correlates. I think that we need to give our children grace, and I think that we also need to be spending time with them. That way, at the end of our day, we're not sitting back considering what we could have, should have, would have done differently. That way our minds are not consumed with doubts, fears, concerns. Our heart's not full of pain. So I want to encourage anybody that's listening today to pour into your children. Die to yourself a little bit more today. Love on them, man. Love on them. We're not promised tomorrow. And we all don't get that time to reflect upon our lives like my dad did, right? That's not always how that goes. Sometimes you get no time. Sometimes God just calls you home immediately. So there's no time to get your stuff in order at that point, so to speak. Get your stuff in order today, because you're given today. That we know for a fact. God bless you guys. God bless you guys.